All right, which that brings us to our final film of the evening, and that is The Rocketeer. Decidedly a different aesthetic than either of these two movies. If this hadn't been directed by Joe Johnston, you would have assumed it was directed by Steven Spielberg. But the Rocketeer was, in fact, directed by Joe Johnston, and you might know him from the following movies: Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Jumanji, Jurassic Park 3, boo, boo, The Wolfman, starring Benicio del Toro and Anthony Hopkins, Captain America, the
first Avenger.
Yep, Captain America and the First Avenger, and The Nutcracker and the Four Realms. He also worked a little bit on the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, the last decent Indiana Jones thing ever. And he's got some different credits, visual effects, or art director for the following movies: Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Return of the Jedi. That was why this is reminding me of Spielberg. Temple of Doom. He was the ultralight sequence direct designer for Howard the Duck. Hot diggity. He's a second unit director.
We all start somewhere.
He is the second unit director for one of the greatest movies ever made, Batteries Not Included. He was an associate producer on Willow. Some other television that he's worked on in different positions: Battlestar Galactica, The Ewok Adventure, and The Ewoks Battle of Endor. And then it looks like he did a documentary called Light and Magic. So that's Joe Johnston. But what is The Rocketeer, you might be asking? It's a 1991 American superhero film from Walt Disney Pictures when they used to make movies. It was produced by Charles Gordon, Lawrence Gordon, and Lloyd Levin, directed by the aforementioned Joe Johnston, and it stars Billy Campbell, Jennifer Connelly, Alan Arkin, Timothy Dalton, Paul Sorvino, and Tiny Ron Taylor. It is based on the character of the same name, created by a comic book artist and writer, Dan Stevens. I'm going to start with you first, Dorian. You say this is your favorite thing. Were you familiar at all with the comic books?
Yes, actually. I have a Rocketeer comic. The Rocketeer comics came out in the 80s. It was one of the ones that my legal guardians, we were at antique shops. I was allowed to get Batman and stuff like that, but nothing really from Marvel, because Marvel was, again, not necessarily the devil, but like too much. But
were your legal guardians aware that Superboy punched the universe? Because I think if they were, they would have changed their minds.
Yeah, and then I wouldn't have gotten to read Superman or Batman, so I'm glad they weren't aware.
Don't tell them about the crises. Don't tell them about the crises.
If they don't know won't hurt them, and thusly won't hurt me. That was dark, was it not? No. I remember reading this, and I'd seen the movie beforehand, because it was in that realm of Walt Disney when it was still Touchstone Pictures, kind of like, we don't know if this is going to roll or not, so we're going to see. Okay, we'll go over here.
Yeah, Walt Disney in its innocent period when it was making movies for families.
Right. But this movie I really, really enjoyed because one of my legal guardians was a airplane mechanic, so I spent a lot of my time on airstrips as well. So I got a lot of the avionics jokes in this that they make, and it was a fun. And again, I'm completely going to agree with you. If you didn't know it was Joe Johnston, you would assume it was Steven Spielberg.
Yeah,
it has that Spielberg feel to it, and not just because the guy's in tan pants and a leather jacket.
It is imbued with Americana and hope like no movie I've seen in the past 20 years.
And I feel like it just came out at the wrong time. It didn't have the right marketing. I love this movie. I mean, thus, one behind me. There are lines in this movie I still use today, just in regular conversation. When something goes horrifically wrong, but there's nothing we can do about it, I will literally throw my hands up and go, well, that's the end of that, which is a line from PV, who's the airplane mechanic who works for our lead. I love this movie. I will watch this movie 1,000 times, and I have watched it 1,000 times. It's part of this group of movies that no one remembers, which includes The Shadow, The Phantom, Dick Tracy, obviously the Rocketeer, Darkman a little bit as well, but Darkman was on the kind of darker side of that. And if you don't know about the Darkman series, check also the Radulich Network for the entire trilogy they did.
Yes, we did a Long Road to Ruin on Darkman a few years ago, mostly because I can't stop saying "Die, Darkman, die." Greatest name of a movie ever.
Right, and that's the third one. Which, very quickly on Darkman, if you're a Mummy fan with the Brendan Fraser ones, go back and watch Darkman, because the second two have Arnold Vosloo, who played the Mummy, as Darkman.
Incidentally, we also did a Long Road to Ruin on the Brendan Fraser Mummy movies.
Oh, fun. I'll have to watch that.
That's why I said call me first before you agree to do anything.
But no, with the Rocketeer, this was... I hate using the word wholesome, because these days that word is always used in this kind of like, well, it's safe. This is not safe. There is a semi kind of... Well, not semi. Sorry, take two. There is a whole Nazi background thing on this, but it does feel like an Indiana Jones movie. Like, if Harrison Ford had shown up in this movie to help Cliff Secord, who's our lead, fight the Nazis, none of us would have blinked.
Yeah. And in 1991, they wouldn't have had to puppeteer him around like Weekend at Bernie's.
Right. But
I'll never forgive the Dial of Destiny. Never.
Till death. But no, this is I don't understand why this movie didn't get as much love as it should have. Like, it's getting...
I have reasons.
I'm sure you do, because you always do, boss. And that's why you run the podcast, and I just come on as the little kid in the background and goes, "There's good in everything." Take a drink. But no, I love this movie. The look, the feel of it. Even before I'd already wanted to be a director by the time I saw this movie. But the look and feel of it, just it was awesome. And it was a superhero movie that felt like the old 78 Superman movies. There was hope. We had a hero that it wasn't about, I must avenge my parents, or Uncle Ben died, so I have to do this. It was, he wanted to do the right thing. The first time that he becomes the Rocketeer in the movie is because a friend of his is doing a clown thing in a plane, and there's an accident. The guy gets knocked out. We see the plane starting to like fly out of the way, and Cliff puts this rocket pack they found on and the helmet they've created for it, and goes and saves him. And again, there's the music by James Horner's playing. It's like, and Cliff's standing there with the helmet on and the holster bang, and he looks at Peavy and goes, "How do I look?" And Peavy looks at him and goes, "Like a hood ornament." So like normally where you have the hero puts on the suit for the first time, we're like, fuck yeah, it's gonna go kick ass. It's like, no, this is a normal guy who's doing something because his friend's in danger, and he now has the ability, because of this rocket pack, to help it. I don't want to take up too much time because other people need to talk to. I'll have other things to break in and say. Somebody else go.
Okay. How about you, Chae? Had you seen The Rocketeer at all? Are you familiar with the comic books?
I actually watched The Rocketeer yesterday.
Was that a first viewing, or was that a rewatch?
Yeah, that was the first viewing. I had actually not heard anything about The Rocketeer. Like, I've seen the helmet, but that's all I had before yesterday. And Dorian was like, "You gotta fucking watch this. It's a cute movie." And it was a very cute movie. Aesthetically, it was really polished. It's probably the technically best movie out of all three of them that we're reviewing today. I really
it is.
love
I think it's the most. How do I want to phrase this? I think it's the most professional of the three.
Yes, it's definitely the most professional out of them.
Yeah.
But aesthetically, it's very pretty. It's very 1930s futurism. And it's just fucking adorable.
So the basic premise of this thing is we have a down on his luck pilot They're gonna lose. They're gonna lose the mortgage on the farm because they can't get the plane in the air, and it's a whole thing. And they're on their ass. And they're gonna need to figure out what to do in order to save themselves. We have Timothy Dalton, who is an actor. We have Jennifer Connelly, who was a girl, and we have a jetpack that is found that the mob is after, and Timothy Dalton wants, and then we're gonna find out later. To Timothy Dalton's double agent working for the Nazis. But our hero finds this rocket pack. It's like, this is the answer to all my prayers. I'm going to use this thing, and I'm going to entertain children, and we're going to make lots of money. We're going to make all the money. But as it turns out, so during all of this, he's also having difficulties with his girlfriend, who is Jennifer Connelly, because she wants to be an actress, don't you understand? And he's like, yeah, you're more of walking scenery. You should come watch me fly. It's modern critics would just tear that to shreds. But basically, once he, as Dorian said, he saved somebody in the biplane during the air show. And that's what alerts all the bad guys that, hey, this asshole's got our thing. Go get him. And so now it's keep away from the bad guys. But the bad guys take women and children and everything that isn't nailed down in order to get him cornered. And so he finally does show up, and there's a big, and Nazis show up, and everybody shows up, and the cavalry came, but then it was too late. And so we have a big fight on a Zeppelin. The Zeppelin eventually blows up. The actual Rocketeer rocket gets blowed up. Timothy Dalton gets blowed up, and they are saved, and all is well, and they love each other, and it's just amazing. So my son hated this movie. And this is why I don't think it would do well today. It takes. I mean, you want to fight a 10-year-old? Be my guest. But my son's scrappy. I brought him up on mild. Listen, I brought him up on MMA and mild racism. You want to fuck with my son? You're gonna get the horns, kid. Anyway.
Sounds like a game.
I just supplied my son was a bull. But no, his whole thing was, and I didn't blame him for thinking this. It's like, this movie, we're 3 hours into the movie, and he finally gets the fucking backpack, and does something with it. I mean, not that I'm totally married to strict lineal script structure, but for God's sakes, 10 minutes if we get the kids to the mall already. 30 minutes and we're done with the first act. This thing takes forever to get started. There is a lot for a movie about the Rocketeer, and this he said something along these lines. I'm going to polish it up, but I think this is absolutely true. For a movie called The Rocketeer, there is very little rocketeering in this movie. There is a lot of character drama and building and world building, and a lot of Timothy Dalton, a lot of Jennifer Connelly, and a lot of running around. But maybe 2 or 3 scenes of him actually using the stupid thing, and the entire third act is he's not using it. He gets on the Zeppelin, and by that point, it's give me the rocket pack, and I'll give you the girl. No, give me the girl, and I'll give you the rocket pack. All right, here's the rocket pack, and we lose it. And then they get another plane. Howard Hughes gets another plane in the air, and he saves them. So. I'm not taking away your love of this movie. Love this movie. There are people in the comment, I'm going to guess these are your friends, that are like, I love The Rocketeer. Love The Rocketeer. Love Nancy Reagan and Apple Pie and Hope. Love it all. I'm not saying you shouldn't. But I am saying that if you're going to make a movie called Rocketeer, there better be some rocketeering going on. I mean, I think this is why Iron Man does what Rocketeer is trying to do a lot better. He's Iron Man in the first 20 to 30 minutes of that movie. And then after he actually builds the new suit, we get to see him do stuff with it for a good portion of the movie. And then the third act is him in the damn suit fighting the Ironmonger. I think Iron Man's a better Rocketeer in terms of like script structure.
No, I would agree, and I think we lost Chae.
Yeah, something's going on with her camera, as near as I can tell.
That's fair. Come back to us soon. No, I would definitely agree. This movie, yeah, there's for one, this movie is for Joe Johnston a audition piece in order to do Captain America: The First Avenger. Now, again,
which is a much better movie, by the way.
Yeah, and again, this movie crawls so Captain America: The First Avenger can run.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that, and again, this comes back to what I was talking about with like you said your son didn't like Tank Girl, which is fair. I mean, that's fine. I think I said it last night with the.
I'm not beating the 10-year-old up for not liking the surrealist weirdo Riot Girl movie.
No, I'm not either. I'm like, if it had been my son and he was like, yeah, dude, I don't like this, I'd be like, I feel you.
Yeah, that's kind of what I said.
I enjoy it, but it's not the end of the world. This movie was trying to be less of a superhero movie and more of a love letter to 1930s stuff.
Which is exactly why it would fail today.
I think I will disagree with you. I think with the right director, like again, if Joe Johnston came back and went, hey, let's do The Rocketeer again. I mean, it never would happen. But, let's do The Rocketeer again, and let's try it this way. With the audience we have today, I think in that case, again, if Joe Johnston handled Rocketeer, like he handled Captain America: The First Avenger, people might like it. But again,
I'm going to rebut your point. I'm going to rebut your point in the following way. When I think about the modern Twitter audience, they tend to look back at anything earlier than maybe the 90s and go, that was the racist, ageist, anti-feminist period. And so there's this tendency for modern audiences, for the young kids, the woke crowd, to want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So anything prior to 1990 is bad because some of it was actually bad. And so if you're doing an ode to you're doing an ode to the greatest generation, you're doing an ode to, the 1930s, that Americana, some collegey wise ass 20-year-old in 2024 looks at you and says, oh, when the racism was going on, and the women didn't have the right to vote, and and you couldn't get an abortion out of a candy machine.
True,
and so that's why I don't think it would work. Not that I wouldn't want it to, but I think it has a hard time finding an audience of young people.
My issue is just like, if you look at it from like, 1930s racism, it's like, then you're not watching the movie, because again, several things that happen. Again, when Cliff in the big dog that is the cafe, I'm not going to explain what that is. You have to go and watch the movie. That's right, audience. I'm fucking with you. Anyway, but like Cliff gets mad at, like Jennifer Connelly's like, you said there were a few bumps on the landing. We thought Cliffy's number was up. And he spat back at her. It's like, well, everyone knew what happened because they were at the airfield. And she gets up and leaves. And
no, that's where they had the conversation. I was like, I was at a gig. I'm trying to be an actress. And he was like, yeah, you're moving scenery. Shut up. Make me a sandwich.
Yeah, it's like, that great movie. You had 3 seconds of dialogue. It was great.
Instead of going holding, like you're in the background holding grapes, and she's just like, there are no small parts in Hollywood, you dick, and runs away.
He walks out, and then, but again, with the anti-feminism argument, I would bring in for number one, the one who runs the cafe throws the rag down, goes, well, go after her, you dope.
Sure.
But there's also the whole and again, poor Jennifer Connelly in those eras. What is it with every older, sexy man trying to get into her panties and get her to dance?
Well, Jennifer Connelly is a pretty girl,
I mean, we got Labyrinth with David Bowie, and then we got this movie with Timothy Dalton. I mean, what can you do?
Listen, and then she's going to be an Ang Lee's Hulk, where she gets to stare blankly into the middle distance for 2 hours.
And I think she got screwed on that one. But again, with this movie, she has the moment where it's like she figures everything out, and she like, can you help me unzip? And Timothy Dalton's being all seducey on her, and she cracks him over the head. And again, she gets a full shot of her face. Like, I finally got to play a scene with Neville Sinclair. And like, you see the like kind of angry zip up of her dress. I'm like, yes, you. But again, there is the Americana of it too. And I love the scene at the end when Howard Hughes, which we haven't actually talked about the fact that Howard Hughes is in this movie. We'll get that in just a second. When he brings in the plane for Cliff at the end, and it's like, he goes, let me ask you one thing. How did it feel with that thing on your back, flying like a bat out of hell? Well, the closest I'll ever get to heaven. And then he turns, and we get, the 30s, 40s thing of her being Jennifer Connelly being all cute next to the plane, and he's like, well, maybe not. And it's a really cute moment that doesn't put her in the whole like, go make me a sandwich shit.
So there's another part of this movie that I have to laugh at, and I'm gonna just so we don't lose Chae, and Chae has to like now watch us talk for an hour. Chae, let me tell you another stupid thing about this movie. Are you ready?
Yeah.
The big reveal, the big aha moment, the denouement. Timothy Dalton, and they're talking about what is the implication of this rocket pack, and I can't remember exactly how it goes in the movie, but there's a cut to scene of basically the implication is the entire Nazi army would have these things strapped to their back, and they would fly over the entire Atlantic Ocean and land in the continental United States as an invading army. And the whole time I'm watching that going, so artillery fire doesn't exist in this world? With these, we see an entire invading army airborne, and suddenly we have no defenses in the United States. Get the fuck out of here! Like, how are they sending them over? And are they wearing Iron Man suits? Are they wearing suits of armor? Are they wearing bullet deflecting vests? What are we doing here?
That was the propaganda that was actually coming out at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So they actually matched it very close to. I'm sorry, Chae, I'm not trying to walk over your time to talk, but I just I do have to disagree in the sense that
that's fine. It's also absurd.
And so was the shit that was coming out at the time that the movie set. It's like, really? That's how it's going to happen?
Sure.
Like, audience, if you get a chance, watch World War II propaganda.
I would have more believed we were going to have a land invasion of fucking Tinkerbells. They at least had magic.
Chae, over to you.
I mean, yeah, it was absurd, but honestly, it's a kid's film. It's an absolute fantasy. Like, it's what my grandparents would have thought that they were going to be when they were playing superheroes, and
right.
It just, and yeah, it's silly, but I mean, that's what a little kid would think of when they're thinking, oh, people with rocket packs on the Nazi side.
Mm-hmm. I think I'm gonna keep talking to you because Dorian seems to have run off on us. I think my son's struggle, my struggle is like, it's not that I think The Rocketeer is a bad movie. It's not. It's a perfectly lovely movie. It's fairly well crafted. It's got some pacing issues, I think, but for the most part, I think it's a solid picture. I think my problem with The Rocketeer in general is I don't even know how I want to phrase this. Dorian, I catch you as you're drinking. I know you've got some more stuff you were wanting to say about The Rocketeer, so just go ahead and do it while I kind of gather my thoughts.
No, I agree that there's a fantasy thing to it, but it was the fantasy that historically was a possibility, that the people thought were a possibility. There were things being worked on that this could happen. And there's a whole spy element to the movie of this rocket pack being created. The Howard Hughes thing. For any history and or avionic buffs out there, there's a really hilarious scene when Cliff Secord is running from Howard Hughes's. We have an actor playing Howard Hughes. It was a guy from Lost, but he's running from Howard Hughes's office, and he jumps out the window and he grabs onto this model of a plane, which would become the Lockheed bomber, and he zip lines out the hangar. And
I laughed my ass off at that scene.
the plane, like he jumps off and runs off, and the model keeps flying, and it cuts into Howard Hughes, and he goes, "The son of a bitch will fly." Which was like
my son and I were joking around, like having to explain that to your boss later. And so you see, boss, he grabbed a glider and flew out the window. Like, did anyone shoot him? Why didn't you stop him? Shoot the line, do something. Like,
because Howard Hughes says no guns. He pushes the guy's hand down, says no guns.
I remember what I was starting to say now.
Cool.
By 1991, we've had a couple of Batman movies. We've had a couple of Superman movies. We've had, I think by this point, we've got a handful of superheroes. Yeah, we've got we've got Indiana Jones movies. We've got Star Trek. We've got Star Wars. We have a lot, and we have stuff that looks like the future, far future by this point. And I almost think the Rocketeer is too quaint by half. I think when you've gotten a steady diet of Star Trek, Star Wars, Indiana Jones, superheroes, etc., and then you're like, all right, and now here's a guy with a jetpack, you kind of have my son's reaction of, is that all? Is this it? Like the other guy's throwing ninja stars and jumping out of alleys, yelling, "I'm Batman!" Like, what does he do? And I think it's the last thing I'm going to say about the movie, and I'll give you guys like the final word. I think in a bubble, isolated from everything else, The Rocketeer is a lovely, quaint movie. In 1991, by comparison to everything that had come out in the past decade, I don't think it's enough. I think it's too small. I think it's too quaint. And I think it's a love letter to a period that a lot of people wouldn't find. I mean, not everyone, but don't see the value in. And so this feels like Joe Johnston's sort of passion project. But I'm not entirely sure there's and again, the thing bombed, a big enough audience to support someone's sort of niche passion project. I'm going to go to Chae first for her thoughts on that and final word, and then you, Dorian, can back clean up.
Honestly, I think it was a cute movie. I think it was a lovely little letter to old comic books. I don't really have much to say past that. It's okay. Very cute. It's definitely something that I would probably show to my kids if I had any.
You should absolutely listen. I made it a point to watch it with my kids. So it's just because I have criticisms of hey, Chris Bailey and everybody else, just because I criticize something doesn't mean I think you shouldn't watch it. No, you should absolutely should. There's value in here, but this, what are we going to talk? We can't do an hour of it's good, it's fine. What are we doing here? So yes, so I have to find things to talk about. Things to talk about, Dorian. Your final words here on The Rocketeer.
I think this movie, and again, I know I say this on pretty much every podcast I'm on. It's something that it is definitely something to watch. It's a different superhero film, of somebody who just kind of stumbles into that power. It's different than Iron Man, where it's like you have a somebody who's up their own ass already and has to learn to be a better person through what they put on and such like that. However, what I will say is that I think this movie was made at the wrong time.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at.
1989 was our last Indiana Jones film, theatrically released, that being Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. So 1991, we're still kind of like, dude, we got Indiana Jones. We got all this cool, 1930s, stuff like that. I think if they had made this movie today, like it didn't exist before, it existed now. Like, Joe Johnston was like, hey, I've done Captain America, got him off the ground, cool, bitching. I want to do this. I think the movie would be accepted a little bit more. I think there'd be criticism of, oh, well, it's too happy. Well, yeah, you know what? Not everything has to be so fucking sad the entire time. If you want that, then we're going to tie you up, put you in a room, and play Les Mis on repeat 24 hours a day until you die.